Hello and welcome to Corpse Club, the official podcast of dailydead.com. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bryan Christopher. And tonight we have Jonathan James, Scott Drebit, and Derek Anderson joining us. How you doing, gents?
Well,
Super duper.
yeah,
Feeling
nice to
good.
be back.
Awesome, awesome. Now, if you're listening to this, it's going to be well past, but we are recording on Devil's Night, Halloween Eve, which All Hallows Eve, I guess, is what we're doing.
Yeah,
That
that
works, right?
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it also
Has a
called
nice ring
Cabbage
to it.
Night? I heard somewhere that
Yes.
it was
And
called
Beggar's
Cabbage Night.
Night, I've heard as
Yep.
well.
Is it
Yeah.
Beggar's Night?
I've heard.
Yeah,
Well,
where
I
they
think
like
all of this stuff is fair game.
Is Cabbage Night like a Calgary thing, Scott, or?
no, maybe I misheard. I
No,
mean
you're
that's unlikely, but
no,
anything's
you're right.
possible.
If I haven't heard of it, certainly it's not a thing
Is there
because
Cabbage
I
Night?
am a man of the world. I don't know.
Is there people chucking cabbage?
It depends
Let
like what
let us
region you're from.
Well, I don't eat it, so fucking I'll throw it.
some places it's lettuce night, some places it's cabbage night, and it depends on the region. Okay, we are off with a bang. Okay, so
Making that
we
up.
so tonight we're going to be talking about a whole slew of new and newish movies. We've got Smile 2, we've got VHS Beyond, we've got The Substance, we've got Terrifier 3, we've got Trap, and we've got a revisit to Longlegs because our good friend Derek has caught up and gotten to see it. But I did before we got into the new stuff. We've had an ongoing thing about Halloween Resurrection and Dangertainment, and I think I've said that like I've never seen it. And so, for those of you who don't know, I've been. Why would any of you know this? I have been on a work trip for the last month.
People might follow you. Yeah.
Yeah, like I haven't posted it anywhere. I'm an idiot. So for those of you who don't know, which is literally everyone except for the people already on that are hosting with me, I have been on a work trip for my day job doing some disaster response for the past month. I'm using that first of all as my excuse as to why I'm going to be a complete and utter idiot tonight, and also to introduce. I have not had cable television in years. And so, which means I haven't been able to do like AMC's Fear Fest in years. I finally am able to like at the end of the day just kind of like plop down and watch some old horror movies, like old at this point meaning early 2000s. And
Oh,
I had never actually
I'm gonna
seen,
cry.
yeah, I'm gonna weep. I had never actually seen Halloween Resurrection before. I'd always been angry at what they did with, with Laurie Strode. But I'd never seen it. So this was an opportunity for me to see it. And Derek, I know that you like you're a fan. You've seen this multiple times, and there's one thing that like came up and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I thought maybe I have a question that maybe you can answer.
Okay.
What the fuck is wrong with you? This movie is so bad.
Yeah.
This movie is a crime against the genre. Like, I don't like being the neckbeard who just like, this movie ruined my childhood. It didn't, but it's not good. Like
It's crime-tainment.
they took what was such a absolutely perfect resolution between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers and said, no, it was a paramedic. No, fuck you. It was a paramedic. Yeah, he choked him hard enough that apparently that not only took away his voice, but it allowed him to survive getting hit by a van, tossed down a mountain, and then impaled on a tree. Um, Derek, can you tell me what you see in it? Because I just wasn't seeing it.
Okay, so for me, it's a very complicated road, and I totally get your gripes with the movie because they're valid. They definitely are. So one thing is you mentioned Fear Fest, and this movie just always seems to be on. And I've had access to cable for as long as I can remember, so I've always this time of year watched AMC. They always have. That's why I've seen like Halloween 4, 5, and Resurrection like more than the original Halloween, just because it's always on. And so it's like when you watch like how some people will watch the same movie like 31 days in a row. I've just seen it so many times that I find different things to pull from it. And I don't know, I just had this fascination because when I first saw it, I actually rented it from Blockbuster way back when, and I had actually heard like rumors that like Michael Myers, because I'm like, yeah, how do you follow up H2O the way H2O ends? And I'd heard rumors that like Michael Myers comes back as a ghost, and like, which maybe that would have been the way to go. Like, we saw it with Jason as a zombie in part 6. So for me, there was like this fascination with the movie even before I saw it. And then of course, like I guess I just didn't I didn't ask too many questions about how elaborate of a scheme that was for Michael Myers to survive with the paramedic switcheroo. I think they had to like
Senator, if you could just answer the question, Senator.
okay, so
Thank you.
I'm gonna say I like the concept of like I think it was actually ahead of its time in some ways with this whole like virtual or the reality TV aspect of it, like the ghost hunting kind of aspect of it. And it didn't even start really like the guy who originally wrote the screenplay. I don't think it was really intended to be a Halloween movie, but they kind of were like, hey, this is a cool concept. Let's kind of push it in that direction.
An idea that worked so well
So
for the Hellraiser franchise, just really made
right.
some high quality
It's a
movies
winning
with that.
formula.
But I think for me it's just at times it is so ridiculous that I don't know, I just kind of go along for the ride, and Busta Rhymes is just like so all in the movie. And also and the guy who plays Decker, this might also be a kind of a hidden link between everything, but the guy who plays Decker, who played by Ryan Merriman, who's like chatting with the protagonist while she's in Michael Myers' house, he was in like a whole bunch of Disney Channel original movies that I grew up with.
Oh,
So Luck of the
there it is.
Irish,
Well, there it is.
Smart
Why didn't
House.
you lead with that 10
Yeah.
minutes ago?
Yeah, come out of the gate with that, Derek. Disney Channel connection. That's all you
we
needed to
we
say.
knew it. Yeah.
So yeah, that might be the biggest reason. But
It means a lot to you and your child.
Yes.
yeah. I mean, Tyra
Oh.
Banks, like it's just such a slice of time there, like that movie. But also very much one of the more over the top entries to any slasher franchise.
That's one way to
Yeah,
put it.
it's interesting. I'm glad that you finally got time to really, stew in its the aroma of this
And
movie.
its stench. Yeah. It broke my
Let it
brain so
marinate.
badly that it came on like the next day and I started watching it again. Like I
See?
truly am a
Yes.
masochist.
That's fine.
Yes, see, that's how it starts. You will
All right.
start to watch this more and more as time goes on. It's just the way it is.
All right. Well, I do also have to, well, since I came out of the gate swinging at Derek, I do want to give an opportunity because it is that time of year. We had another Soup Fest recently, did we not?
We did. Speaking of aromas and wonderful stenches, because my soup smelled good. My soup had a good stank.
Fine.
Let's be honest.
Can you give some context for people
Everybody
who are
loves their
turning
own
on-
soup.
who are listening for the first time to this podcast?
So we
No,
talked
this
about this
is-
last year.
No
We talked-
context. This
Ugh.
podcast is about horror movies and soup. If you can't accept that, then you're going to need to move on.
Right. Stinky ass soup.
So,
This
okay.
This is our
Uh,
brand. This is our brand now.
Do you
So
want to give people an overview on Soup Fest and its meaning to our podcast?
yes, absolutely. So if you listened last year around this time, I talked about going to Soupfest, which is hosted by my really great friends Zach and Sarah, and they have hosted this annual event every year in the fall where they have a bunch of friends come together and everyone brings like a soup in a crock pot. And so you make the soup at home and then you bring it there. And then there's all these tables that you put your soup on. And then you kind of put together a little display, almost like a little science fair setup. And then everyone gets like cups and you go down the line and you taste everyone's soup. Basically what happens is after everyone has had anywhere from like 15 to 20 soup samples, and I always eat way too much because
I trust you collect everybody's car keys before they do that. You don't
Oh,
want
yeah,
anyone
absolutely.
driving home after
No,
15 to
because
20
you will
soups.
you're falling asleep like hardcore after all that hot soup on a nice autumnal day. It's just what the doctor ordered. But so then you go through and then you
Autumnal?
vote. Autumnal. We say things a little differently here in Minnesota.
Falnal.
But so you go through and everyone gets they vote for best overall soup, most unique soup, and like best display for the soup. last year I actually won using my grandma's fruit soup recipe, which is basically like almost like a pie filling. It's really has like prunes and raisins, a lot of things that would get the bowels moving if you're looking for something to
I
kickstart
don't
that
remember you
process.
describing the ingredients last year
We
because
would have said something about that.
But it's delicious. Don't get me wrong; it is amazing. I'm glad I finally got to make it. But this year, the winners of each category gets a Golden Ladle Award, which Zach makes. Like it's like a trophy that he makes where you get a gold ladle. And so I won last year with the sweet soup, but then this year I'm like I'm gonna do savory, and so I decided to do a pizza soup. I basically put a Domino's pizza in a blender and no, that would have been one way to do it. But this was just putting a whole bunch of like pizza ingredients. So I had mushrooms, green peppers, tomato sauce,
Okay.
had and a whole bunch of pepperoni.
Yeah.
And the recipe I found online had like sausage, but I decided to substitute that with bacon because I thought that would be more crowd pleasing because not everyone
Okay.
likes the pizza sausage taste. And then I put in a whole bunch of red chili pepper, which I probably put in just a little bit too much, but I like it spicy, so I thought I'm gonna keep putting in that spice. And it had a really nice little kick to it. And so I put in my brother-in-law's vehicle, and we drove over there with my sister. And we got there, and I realized I had filled it up a little too high because there was pizza soup all over the box that I had packed it in. And just
at least
like,
that's what he's telling the cops.
oh, it was like if you like drop sloppy Joe like just everywhere. So people seem to enjoy it, and my mom hooked me up with some good like pizza props. I had the pizza slicer and some garlic bread. So we had some. I didn't make the bread or anything, but just like some basic like garlic bread to dip it in because it's pizza. So it was a very good complimentary dish. But I did not win any golden ladles this year. Although I am told that I got votes for best overall soup and best or most unique soup. So I did get some votes for each of those. It was fun though. It was, Sarah won with it was like a garlic bread soup. So, and her display was like all Twilight themed. So there was Edward and Kristen Bell and yeah, it was.
I think I'm having a hard time connecting the
Why?
dots on that, Derek.
Well, the
Why?
vampires and garlic, right? I think I got it.
Yeah,
I think I put it. That's
Okay,
it. I got it.
absolutely. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it kind of forces you to come up with some fun creations because it's like every time I do it, I'm like I should make soup more often, and then I don't make soup until the next year. But,
So for your garlic toast,
yes.
how did you make your garlic butter? Was it like, what did you use, butter and garlic salt or garlic powder? How did you make your garlic butter to put on the bread to make the toast?
Well, so this part I kind of cheated on because it was all pre on the bread. Like I got it frozen.
Oh, that's
And
disgusting.
no, it was
Shame on
actually
you.
you throw it in the
Fuck,
oven
no
for like
wonder
10.
you lost.
No, I didn't have to make the bread. It's not bread fest. All right, it's not
Run you out
bread
of
fest.
town. It's part of
No,
your
no,
dish.
it's like I didn't make the cheese, like that. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I didn't put cheese.
That was my
'cause
question.
I thought
Yeah.
I was like, well, you could put it in, but then it's gonna get really soggy. So instead, just had like shredded mozzarella cheese that you could put as much as you wanted on the top, and then it would melt into it, rather than have it just cook for like 5 hours and then have it be like the stuff like where it's just like it's basically becomes like a pasta dish at that point. So I avoided putting the cheese in it while it cooked. And yeah, I did not make the garlic butter, Scott. I do apologize. Sorry, Zach and Sarah, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Don't
That's
disqualify me, please.
And if you're just tuning into Corpse Club, we're discussing garlic butter recipes with Derek.
Yes, it's
Who I feel like is the last person we should be discussing it with because he cheated and made store-bought garlic.
We should be discussing this with Sarah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I will. Yeah, she and her garlic. I love garlic, so like
Yeah. We
her
need the
garlic
winner
bread
on
soup.
every year is what we need.
Yeah.
There you
That's a
go.
good endorsement right there.
Well, not
It's
for you.
one of the new like part of the prize pack for winning Soupfest is that you become a co-host of Daily Dead of Corpse Club for the next year.
Whether
I
or
just
not you even
Yeah,
like
whether
I
horror,
or not
just
you
I know Sarah
consider it
loves
a
horror movies,
prize.
so
I just keep hearing soup fist, and I don't even know what that means, but
oh well,
it
and
sounds
It's
awful.
unwholesome, whatever it is.
It
and
is, yes,
that started
exactly.
like years ago with Zack's side. The family did it in North Dakota, and then they brought it to Minnesota.
So it started
And
out as soup fist, and then it became a fest.
indeed,
All right, maybe it's time
it's
we
very
actually talk about some
autumnal.
new horror movies. What do you
Very
think,
There we
gents?
autumnal.
go. Hey, I'm trying to steer it at least away from that.
And I'll have you know, I
As
did. I'm very glad that I won. We won horror trivia as well. This fall. So I feel like, I don't know.
That's
I
right
guess
on.
I'm. It was fun. I was thinking of you guys when we were doing it. So me, my sister, and brother-in-law won our local horror trivia, and it was the tiebreaker question because there's three teams that had perfect scores. Was the death total in the first Final Destination movie? He had to be the
Ooh.
closest to that number, and
Was it eight?
uh,
does that count knowing
so
like how many people died on the plane?
yes. See, that's the
Oh
thing. At
wow.
first, I'm thinking like, oh, is it eight or
Oh,
nine? And so there's three of us up there for the tiebreaker, and I had to go first. And it wasn't like you could go over the number. It wasn't like Price is Right. But I was like, well, I didn't remember if it was like a full plane, so I said 158. And then I think the next person said like 125, and the other person said like 80. So I ended up, and it
yeah,
was
it's around 80.
292.
That's what I
Hmm.
was just about to change it
So
to
And had you not
292.
thank
gone first, they probably would have guessed like 8. People might have
Like I
not.
oh
People
did.
might not have guessed the
Like I
plane.
did.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's I don't know, it felt good
That
to
wasn't
win
even
the
a dig at you,
tiebreaker.
Scott. But
That's okay.
The
So new horror
Super
movies.
Western
You
trivia.
just
Yeah,
stared right
yeah.
at me and said
Yeah.
eight.
I stared into the void. I didn't. It looks like I'm
Well,
Oh, you
staring.
hear that, Scott? Now he's calling you a void. That's
my
messed
middle
up.
name, Scott Boyd Drebit.
So, Smile 2 is
Yes.
is the follow-up
Let's
from
go.
Parker Finn's Smile from 2022, taking the same premise of the curse of a being that will kind of haunt and follow you while giving you very, very creepy smiles. Taking the events from the first one, and this actually kicks off 6 days later. So we are picking back up with Kyle Gallner's character from the first one, and he is now stuck with this god awful curse, trying to find his best way to get rid of it. He's kind of doing a Hail Mary and trying to pass it off on a couple of really unpleasant drug dealers. I won't get too into the details, but things go awry, and it kind of like skips through a few different people, and then we land on Riley Sky, who is a pop star played by Naomi Scott, who is coming about a year off of a really bad car accident where she was really badly injured and her longtime boyfriend. And you see very quickly that, she is trying to present that she has come out the other side of it and she is in a much better, healthier place. But you can tell she is still under the same pressures of the work that she does that kind of pushed her into the drug addiction that put her in that bad situation in the car accident in the first place. And so she is trying to go and get some pain medicine from her drug dealer. And it turns out at this point that the drug dealer is the poor fellow who is stuck with the curse. As you can guess, she winds up with it, and absolute chaos ensues. I really like the premise of this, where, in the first one, it is, where a lot of horror movies are kind of very enclosed and you see these things happen in a very like kind of isolated bubble. I like the idea that Parker Finn, who does double duty as both writer and director, he really leans into like what if you're going through this really awful thing and you are in the public spotlight. And so I think it on one hand, this is a very like I think part one and the sequel are very much pop. They're doing the jump scares, they're doing like the fun set pieces, but I do think that there is a really interesting conversation being had about the way we kind of commodify and dehumanize fame and people who are famous and just see them for what they produce and the way that kind of can erode your mental health. And yeah, adding in like a psychological demon to the mix doesn't have so I really like this. I like the first one. I like the way this kind of expands the story. If I have one quibble about it, I think I saw the ending coming a mile away, but for me it was mainly because, and I won't say what the ending was, but like looking at the premise, I feel like this is a premise that was set up for the like it was like of course that's where this was going to land. So, but that being said, it doesn't kind of make it any less horrifying. Yeah, I really dug it. I had a really good time with it. Gents, have all of you seen this? I think Scott, you haven't yet, right?
No,
All
no.
right.
I'm reluctant to see it. I really had a problem with the way the first Smile ended. I thought its handling of suicide just struck a wrong note with me completely and kind of soured me from what I had enjoyed previously in the movie. So it's I've been kind of reluctant to see it, but I'm hearing a lot of good reviews about it, more so I think than the first one. So maybe it doesn't, pivot on that from the first movie. If it doesn't, I'm 100% in.
Derek, have you seen it?
Yes, yeah, I just saw it a couple of days ago before this recording, and I really liked the concept of the first one. I love like the curse part of it. It definitely has that like the ring kind of vibe to it. You get about a week of, just being tormented and then, bad stuff happens. But so I always liked like the concept of it and really enjoyed like Sosie Bacon in the first one, her performance and Kyle Gallner as well. But I think yeah, I really kind of like you mentioned, Brian, like where they push it in this one, like with the pop star front and center, and like that what if someone super famous got this curse, and like what would that look like? I think is a really interesting way to go. It's kind of cliched, but to go bigger with the sequel, like the aliens to the smiles to smile. And I think but it's more than that though. It's like more than just a gimmick. Like I think they really Sky was a really well-rounded character. I thought Naomi Scott did a really brilliant job in her performance of her character. And as you find out throughout the movie, there's a lot of layers to what she's gone through and how she views herself. And I thought it was really interesting how believable they made her like lifestyle as far as like showing her as like this Lady Gaga type performer with the stage dances that they would do. And they really brought that world to life, and the choreography and the production design. So I really liked it a lot. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out if I liked it as much as the first one, but I really like the setting of it and the performances. And also Alec Gillis was back to do the creature design as well, which I thought was interesting because that's kind of the fun part of these movies too, is just seeing how far they push that part of it.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I have so many things to say about this, and it's not a Smile 2 episode, so I'm gonna be as quick as possible. I had a weird experience with this movie because I left it not liking it that much, and now I really like it, and in that space of time, because it's only been like a week or two, like that's only happened like one or two times. I need to
And is that within is that within have you seen it another time, or was it just being
No,
able to
that
kind
was
of like
within the first
marinate it?
time and spend time with it. And maybe it goes back to some of the things that, Scott mentioned with the first, where I do think like this movie is a tough watch, because I think both of them are, because it, under a supernatural like telling, deals with individuals that have challenges, whether it be mental health, substance abuse, whatever the case is, and then through supernatural means or not, cannot cannot overcome it. And that's I think that's a especially for like American audiences, like that's tough. You want to see something come through. We have an emotional connection, especially to like the characters that we watch. We want to see them be able to pull through, especially if they represent something that means a lot. This one was, definitely like tied to alcohol abuse. And it's very, very apparent, and drug abuse, and it's very apparent and tied to the beginning. You mentioned, Derek, you mentioned Lady Gaga, but I think there's a lot more parallels to Demi Lovato, who kind of struggled with that stuff, both the fame and the addiction in a very public way. And so anyway, so I thought it was interesting how it kind of tackled. I still think, like I said, kind of your point, Scott, for people that had a tough time with the first one, I think you'll have a tough time with the second. Some of the issues I have with the story and some of the issues I have with the direction, even though the cinematography, Naomi Scott wins me over because, like, holy shit, her performance is it's just amazing. This is someone who really truly puts it all on screen. It is a very, very, very physical performance. It's a difficult performance to kind of pull, being that, again, that pop star, but then to also like be put through the ringer physically, to see that physical transformation. And then she's doing all the singing. Like, I was listening to the album after because I got stuck in my head. She's doing all the singing. She's doing all the performing. Like, that soundtrack is killer. Honestly, it is probably one of the best soundtracks, like through and through. Like, every song is a hit pop song. Like, Lady Gaga just released a new song. I like Sky Riley's album better. And so it's hilarious because it's like so many things come together at this. And, it doesn't always work out, but for a sequel, like the extra budget, like it was spent well. Like, this movie feels bigger. It feels more polished. The music is great. And then for me, it's very Japanese horror. So there's a lot of, you mentioned The Ring, but there's anyway, yeah, it started out, I was like kind of okay with it, and now it's definitely one of my favorites.
And yeah, I really need to second the fact, like, Naomi Scott carries this movie. She is doing so much heavy lifting. Like, even in scenes where there's other people, she's carrying it. Like, it is her show. I think she knocks it out.
A couple quick criticisms from me before I forget is I think this movie is about 10 minutes too long. I could use
Oh yeah, it's over 2 hours long, and it's
Yeah.
like no movie needs to
I
be
think it's
that
about
long.
10 minutes too long. And then the other, I don't know if it's a complaint or a wish, but that intro, that Kyle Gallner intro, is like a different movie. And I kind of really wanted to see that movie and this movie.
Yeah.
So, like, it wasn't, I told, when I was talking to Christy about it, because we both saw it, I actually said that I thought it was a better movie. And like I said, and I flipped, but now I want to see both movies. And so it's kind of interesting, but no, it's definitely worth a watch, especially.
Well, I'm going to call a little bit of an audible and go with one that we're going to do a little bit later. I want to do it now because of the kind of the pop star
Yeah.
crossover. So I'm gonna pitch it over to Scott,
Oh,
and let's talk Trap.
Trap, Mr. M. Night Shyamalan's latest film, latest low budget wonder that I got to hand it to the guy. He finances them all himself, and he's doing it his way. You know, for better or worse. Where does Trap fall? Well, let's talk about the story first, and then you can decide if you've seen it or haven't seen it. So, the basic story is a father who's a firefighter, played by Josh Hartnett, and he takes his daughter to a concert by Lady Raven, played by one of M. Night's children.
Suleika Night
Performs,
Shyamalan.
Yeah.
yes. Um, she wrote, produced, performs every song that you hear from that stage. So good on her. Now we find out in short order that the reason for this special concert is they're planning to trap this killer called the Butcher, as they heard that he was going to be at the concert. So they're planning to trap him at the concert, and they're going to search every male within a certain demographic to find the Butcher. And in shorter order than that, we find out that Josh Hartnett is the Butcher, and now he's trying to get out of the building while still looking after his daughter. So that's the premise. It's an M. Night special. It really depends if you go along with it or not. I did, because Josh is terrific as the serial killer, and it's not a twist that he's the killer. It's right in the trailers from the start. But
Yeah.
his performance, to see how he navigates trying to get out of the building, has a very fun kind of 70s TV movie vibe to it. I don't know if I can explain it any better, but in a good way, or as the kids say, complimentary. It's just fun, and he pulls you through it because boy oh boy is it goofy and stupid. It really is. I don't know how they would attempt to pull this off. They try their best to explain how they're going to find every person out of 20,000 from a small pool of demographics. But hey, that's the premise, and M Night is for the most part Mr. Premise. You either buy into it or you not, or you don't. And sometimes the premises hold up, sometimes they don't. His previous one, Old, didn't work for me at all. This one works better. The script is better. The dialogue is still pretty chunky in spots, but it's a fun one and it doesn't tax you too much. Good performances. Why the hell Haley Mills is there? I have no idea. As this profiler, FBI profiler, like I said, it has very seven kind of exposition to it, and it's light. There's essentially no like heavy violence. Where does it fall apart a bit? Because again, I enjoyed it, but M. Night and his third acts just sometimes they kind of go off the rails a bit, and it's just kind of low key, but it's also kind of weird and pretty tensionless. And so it kind of falls down a bit in its third act, but still, I think that's a good pairing with Smile too. It doesn't deal with the trappings of fame and whatnot. But it does in some fun comical ways deal with how the hell do I get out of this building and get past the cops, you know?
Is it a situation, Scott, where like do you find yourself at certain points like daring to like side with Josh Hartnett's character where it's like you kind of want to see him get out of it, or is it he is very much the antagonist, you're just following?
Well, again, they talk about him being the butcher, but yeah, you see he's got one guy captive in a basement somewhere, but it doesn't have any insidious saw traps set up or anything like that, and he's watching him on his phone. So they they really play up the dad trying to get out of the situation. That's what I said, 70s style, where it's almost sitcom like. It's quite comical because of anyone who's been to any arena and you're on the floor. And if you're going to concessions or to the washroom, yeah, you're going to be quite a while, but there'll be like 30 seconds where he like leaves the floor and then comes back. And I'm like, no, you haven't even made it past 6 rows back, like he's not trying to do anything, earth shattering here either, right? He's just trying to have some fun and obviously, have a showcase as a performer for his daughter, right? So there you go. You could do worse. That's my recommendation of Trap. 3 stars.
Oh man, we haven't even done our ratings yet. Oh man.
Ooh.
So okay, we'll get back to ratings in a little bit. Jonathan, have you seen Trap yet?
I have, yeah, I've seen it. I agree pretty much with a lot of what Scott says. I think interestingly, because this wasn't as big at the box office and as people expected, and the reviews were middling, but like it's probably one of his most like I think commercially made.
Yeah.
It's this is a Hartnett movie. Like it's all around him. He sells it, but it's also like super kind of like high concept. Like I could recommend this movie to anyone. Like I recommended it to my parents the other day. They loved it. Like anybody can see this movie and they can kind of get on board with the initial like tension and the premise. I mean, of course, like I said, like some of the stuff at the end, like third act, like it drags on way too long. But still, like I think a lot of people would have fun with this. You could do a lot worse. So, but for me, like I am on board for most Shyamalan movies. Like I don't. always like them 100%, but I like that he's doing what he does. He's getting his family more involved. I think that's cool. It's fun that we have like Sky Riley and Lady Raven, at the same time. And but yeah, so yeah, I had fun with
Make for an interesting double billing at
it. Yeah.
a concert.
For sure.
Yep. Yep.
Mr. Anderson, have you seen
I have not seen Trap yet, so I need to put that on my to watch list.
Get back to making your soup, sir.
Yep. I am here. I thought I had done all my homework, and this is the one thing that I hadn't seen.
Oh, you
But I
get the
did have
soup
fair warning.
fist.
But yeah, see, I'm just too busy making soup. That's what it is. That's totally what it is. But I am excited to see it, and I actually enjoyed Old, so I'm kind of
I liked
liking.
Old too.
I
Yeah.
liked The Visit. I liked Old.
I like the
So I'm
visit,
kind of enjoying.
except for the
Uh,
rapping.
yeah, I'm kind of enjoying. I like Split, so I've been enjoying what
I
a
like
good
Split.
chunk of what Shyamalan's been doing in recent years. So I'm excited. And Josh Hartnett, I mean, obviously Halloween H2O, The Faculty, and 30 Days of Night, one of my favorite horror movies.
Penny
So
Dreadful, as long as we're
Penny,
making
oh yeah,
suggestions.
yep. Well, I mean, let's H2O first. Then, if you have time, you can get to some of the other stuff. But, but no, so this is definitely one that I want. I want to see those two work together, though. So I'm excited to check it out.
All right, so yeah, my plan all along was to talk about both of these movies because they are
Mhm.
related, and now we'll rate them. This was definitely my plan from go. So I will go back to my Smile 2 review, and I think I'm gonna give that. I'm gonna go with a 3.75. I don't think I can quite give it a 4. I liked it a lot. I wouldn't say like yeah, it just wasn't quite didn't quite get to 4, but I really liked it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've been going back between a 3.5 and a 4. I think I'll probably go 3.5 for Smile 2. But I really very solid 3.5 though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably go like you and just split it down the middle.
Well, like three and a half can be tricky because like in
Yeah.
some cases 3.5 could be like a disappointing 3.5.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think here it's like it was really good. It just didn't quite get to Jonathan.
I started off on a 2, and then after thinking about it, it went up to like a 3, 3.5, and then Sky Riley EP on Spotify. I'm not getting paid for it. It is it
It's
bumped
okay,
that thing.
neither she.
That's funny. Got bumped up. I wouldn't be surprised actually, but that got bumped up to a 4 for me. So it gets a 4 out of 5.
Damn. Okay, you went sprinting past us.
I
Nice.
know.
What Brian and I have to do is let it just marinate for another week or two, and it'll just keep
It was
climbing.
too
Well, I
well.
haven't.
Yeah,
I
it was
also
too
haven't
well
listened to the
made.
Sky Riley EP, so that'll be my
Yeah.
own.
What is it? Doctor, give me a new brain. One of
Yeah,
the
there's
hit
New
singles.
Brain. There's all
New Brain.
kinds. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's like 5.
All right, Mr. Anderson, do you want to introduce us to VHS Beyond?
Yes, let me set the scene. So
Yeah.
we are in, I believe, I want to say this is the ninth installment. Okay. Seventh installment. According to Wikipedia, seventh installment, ninth overall in the VHS franchise. Since I'm saying it word for word, I'll.
Smooth.
But so we are going back to the found footage anthology that, of course, this franchise has. And this every movie has kind of its own underlying theme. In this one, it is sci-fi horror. And I'm really starting off. I'm like, the universe began, and then we go. But so this one, it's kind of like cosmic. It's kind of like sci-fi horror for VHS Beyond for all the different entries, or I should say for most of them, because maybe one or two don't quite have as much sci-fi as the others.
It's an understatement.
So in VHS Beyond, we have segments from Jordan Downey, who directed Stork. We have Fur Babies from brothers Christian and Justin Long. We have Live and Let Dive, the skydiving nightmare from Justin Martinez. We have Dream Girl from Verrett Pal. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And we have Stowaway from Kate Siegel, making her directorial debut. And the wraparound story from Jay Cheel. So another really good roster of directors on this one. Everyone kind of brings something different to the table. And basically, uh, from really the opening frame, it just sets the stage of the wraparound stories about alien visitors. We have the skydiving segment, which involves a lot of aliens, we'll just say. Well, there's a lot of sci-fi in this. And yeah, each segment kind of sort of ties together, but your mileage may vary on each one individually, but overall, a lot of sci-fi cosmic horror to be found here.
VHS for me, especially the last few entries, have been very hit or miss. I've enjoyed them, but it's definitely been like some are better, some are worse. I honestly think there's only one of these that I flat out didn't like. The rest of them I either really liked or flat out. These actually had some of my favorite VHS installments of the entire series. And I think for me, the two highlights are Dream Girl by Virat Patel. It's a whole Bollywood thing where that takes a very disturbing left-hand turn. You do even get a little Bollywood number in there. It's a really interesting look at these two basically like kind of paparazzi guys who are hounding this leading lady and stalking her. And then a secret about her comes out and chaos ensues. It's really brutal. It's really mean-spirited and a really fun. Really loved it. I think just a little bit better for me was Live and Let Dive. That the what they are able to do with a skydiving scene with a series where you know they're getting like 12.95 for a budget. Like they do not get a lot to work. It's all on the screen in that segment because this is a segment that starts literally in like a skydiving plane. I honestly figured it was going to be like it kind of all takes place in there and they find a way to kind of do like a closed room, like a locked room kind of a thing, but it's in the air. But no, they get into the skydiving element of it. The aliens, they're the CGI, the seams show a little bit because again, we're not dealing with huge budgets here, but it looks so good and it's so tense and it's so like gory. And again, it was so much fun. And then I will say Kate Siegel's entry, Stowaway, was some really, really good, like melancholy, bittersweet, and disturbing body, which, melancholy and bittersweet. It was written by Mike Flanagan, so you kind of like, of course. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think a lot of these really were just very high on my list of like overall entries for the series. I think I will let Scott speak for probably I don't know if all of us, but I know both of us in terms of the one that maybe wasn't the best.
Oh, oh, I get to talk about furry babies, do we?
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, fur babies or furry babies, whatever it's called. That's the one that Justin Long and his brother did. It has nothing to do with aliens. It has to do with a lady who runs like a pet daycare. And then she takes people, drugs them, and turns them into her like own dog. So it's a ripoff of Tusk. It's not well made. It's kind of brutal, actually. You know what it reminds me of? Remember that in the anthology holidays, that Kevin Smith segment Halloween? Remember how god awful that was? This kind of reminds me of that. It's not a good segment. It's not good, and it doesn't fit the theme at all of Beyond, right? We're dealing with aliens here. I'm not as enthusiastic about it as you are, Brian. I did like it overall. I watched it twice because I just kind of felt underwhelmed the first time. And I know that it happened with a couple previous entries, and then when on rewatch, they grew for me. So but this time that didn't really take for me that much. Stork has some kind of cool imagery in it, but it also just feels like a first person shooter. And then you have your furry babies, and then I didn't mind the Indian one was interesting. Live and Let Dive, I thought the part heading out of the plane was really good, and then I thought it kind of lost its steam a bit once they hit the ground. So I thought, Kate Siegel's segment is really good. I think she's got, I mean, her husband's writing it and he's kind of good with the word thing. So, but it's good. And it does have an interesting kind of take on what it would be like to encounter aliens and become with them. So it's a kind of a cool thing. I really dug the wraparound with Mitch Horowitz, who's a really interesting guy. And so yeah, overall I liked it, but I didn't think enough of the stories, no pun intended, kind of landed well enough for me to recommend it as much as the last few, which I've been quite fond of.
What would you land on for a rating?
This one, I'm pretty sure I gave three. I may have bumped it up to 3.5.
Mr.
Yeah.
Anderson?
That's I'm thinking I think it's a 4 for me. Like I really liked most of these segments, and yeah, particularly Stowaway from Kate Siegel. I really like the body horror in that one as well, and where it goes. I know she had said that the Jaunt by Stephen King was kind of an influence on that one too, which if you've ever read that short story, it's very horrifying take on like time and space travel and what can go horribly wrong. So yeah, I really liked it as a whole though. So I think I'm gonna go 4.
I think I'm landing on 4.5. I really, really like this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, it was for the issues that I had, the same ones that Scott had with Fur Babies. The rest of them were so good. It's one I definitely want to go back to. And I don't know. For me, it's really hard to do with an anthology to have like, especially when you're doing ones like this with different directors, kind of doing their different take on stuff. It's hard to get like ones that are going to land with one person like across the board like that. The fact that they were able to do that while still being, I think, very different segments. Like it wasn't like they were all the same thing. I just think it was, yeah, it was really, this was a lot. And I think with that, let us go to Jonathan and the substance.
Okay, the substance. I will save us some time. I'm just gonna read the synopsis. I might do this from now on. A fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell replicating substance that temporarily creates a quote unquote younger, better version. It's directed and written by Coralie Fargy, who did Revenge, stars Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid. This is what everybody's talking about. This is the substance. This is a good one. I heard all the hype. I hadn't had a chance to check it out. I was sick. I had some illness, and so maybe I could have used a substance. But anyway, this one's good. So even with my high expectations, I loved it. I've seen all kinds of discussions. I've seen all kinds of arguments. Is it Cronenbergian? Is it Henenlotter? It's horror. It's great horror. It's great body horror. Coralie loves horror, and there are influences all over the place. Also bringing something brand new to the table in terms of this vision. So it's not, just a copy of something either. I think it is a tremendous look at what it's like to be a woman, what it's like to be a woman in the entertainment industry, what it's like aging. I certainly don't have that experience, and even then, it is just very, very apparent that this is, a woman's journey, and that this, whether it's the story, whether it's the camera placement, whether it's the actors, have all kind of put this on the screen. On top of it being, like I said, kind of powerful behind the camera, in front of the camera, you have Demi Moore, who hasn't been doing quite a bit. And, to see her kind of play, it's certainly not autobiographical, but she is in a stage right now where her career is not as popular as it was. So to see her kind of play that role and again, put everything on the screen is incredible. And she gives an incredible performance, and she's not shy to horror. Obviously she's done, horror throughout the years. I just saw Tales from the Crypt episode. But wow, does I mean still for what some may consider more of, like I said, a comeback film, and certainly in terms of visibility, it is. This is a risky film from the subject matter, like I said, to nudity, which some people would be opposed, graphic violence, and body horror, and it's just it's wonderful. It's what do you call it? It's a perfect movie because it's exactly what they wanted, and the fact that movie put it out into theaters and that people are seeing this on the big screen, like it's like Terrifier is like the Terrifier story is great that it's making all this money and doing its thing, but like equally impressive is that the substance got made, that someone funded this, and that it's out in theaters, and that like the average moviegoer is seeing this. I didn't see people walk out of my Terrifier screening. I saw people walk out of.
And just the fact that they're giving another not another chance because it did well, but the fact that they're giving more opportunities to someone who made like one of the kind of like best received rape revenge movies in the last 5 years. They're letting her continue to take chances, and so it sounds like that's continuing to pay off. I haven't gotten to see it yet, but that is just more of an hours in the day thing. I am definitely going to see this movie because Derek, have you seen it yet?
Yes, Jonathan, he was raving about it to me, and I'm like, all right, I got to make time to see this. And I was looking at the show times nearby, and it was like down to one show time, like a 4:40 at one theater. And so I like made it over there. I didn't even get there till like almost 5 o'clock, but the trailers were still cooking, and it was like me and like three other people in the screening, and everyone had come there on their own. So we all were drawn to this movie one way or another. And it was yeah, it completely lived up to the hype, and really unlike anything I've ever seen. And definitely second everything Jonathan said about what its look at that journey in the entertainment industry for a woman who's getting older, and just all these horrible things that they face, and the way that they're treated and discarded. And then on top of all that, just the body horror and the way that it's shot is really in your face. Like there's so many like close-ups, and not just like close-ups, but like when you first see Dennis Quaid and he's playing this really sleazy entertainment executive named Harvey, and he was like walking up to a urinal, and like the cam, like his mouth is just like right at the camera as he's talking on the phone while he's going to the bathroom. And like 2 minutes later you're just watching a close up of his mouth just like biting heads off of like shrimp, and just being like just so like it's just so in your face, like just literally chewing the scenery. And I cannot believe the performances from Quaid and then Margaret and Demi are like, I think they all should get an Oscar for this. Like if it was just from seeing what they did in this movie. And yeah, it's really really intense. But and at 2 hours and 20 minutes, like it didn't really feel that long. Like I wanted it to keep going. Like I was kind of, wondering, oh man, that's going to be a long, a lot of movies are over 2 hours now, and it's a time commitment. But this one, I did not want it to end, but I also was like kind of drained by the end of it too. So it was, uh, it was very much an experience.
Yeah, remember there was a reel or something on Instagram. Someone someone pointed out Margaret Qualley's butt has more screen time in The Substance than Beetlejuice does in Beetlejuice.
I, yeah, I think that is definitely correct. There's a
Uh,
lot of aerobics in the movie.
Jonathan, what do we got for you rating wise on this one?
Oh, this is a 5 out of.
Okay, all right.
It's a what do you call it? I changed my scoring. I used to be a snob with scoring, and I was like, well, if it's not The Exorcist or it's not this, and like it doesn't deserve a 10. Some people still do it, so I'm not making fun of anybody in particular. But like for me, if like they set out to do what they're going to do, and like they exceed on like on multiple levels, like for me, like yeah, you get a 5 out of 5. I don't need to be too precious to it. I think every movie, or every year I do it out of 10. I keep my personal score with Christy, and I do it, and every year I got probably probably two or three of those.
Nice. Derek.
I concur. I give it a 5 as well. It was, yeah, beyond anything I could have imagined, and definitely like you said, Jonathan, for what it sets out to do, I think it is a perfect movie and a very and while being very experimental and bold as well. Like takes a lot of chances, but I think they all pay off, and it is something that yeah, it is not always an easy watch, but I think it's an essential watch. So
And
I
this is one of
really
those interesting ones because it's certainly like it's more than 2 hours, but this is one of the rare cases where I'd say like it doesn't like you shouldn't cut it. Like it doesn't like to cut
Mhm.
like to take away from the message or like to take away from it, it takes away from some of the message, takes away from the character's journey, how the character's being treated. Like you need that because that is as important as what you're seeing in terms of the effects. And I guess yeah, again I could talk about this forever, but like the practical effects in it,
oh
some of the best, like again, some of the best ever. And so it's just incredible practical effect. I've talked about it, but like this movie like goes for it in the third act. So
Looking forward to checking it out. Absolutely. Speaking of checking things out, before we get into our last movie, let's do just a quick revisit of Longlegs because I believe since we last chatted, Scott was given pretty rave reviews, and it got Derek's butt in the seat. Derek, what's your take?
yeah, so I just like literally just watched this movie, so I'm still processing a lot of things, especially from the third act in Long Legs. Yeah, definitely on our last episode, Scott was singing the praises of Osgood Perkins from the highest balcony, and I had to see what all the fuss was about. Not to mention Jonathan's 5-star review over the summer, the brilliant marketing campaign, and Nicolas Cage, who I'll always show up for, and Micah Monroe. This was I really had a good time with this. This was, if you're not familiar, it's kind of got a Silent of the Lambs type vibe to it, Silence of the Lambs type vibe to it, where we have Micah Monroe playing this up and coming FBI agent. It's determined that she has this kind of clairvoyance, this intuition, as they call it, this kind of psychic connection where she can tell, gets a good intuition on cases. So she's brought into the Longlegs case, the serial killer, and these families have been dying in disturbing ways over the last decade plus of time. And Nicolas Cage's Longlegs character is kind of connected to it, but they're just trying to put all the pieces together. Definitely had that like David Fincher moodiness to it. I think it excels in like setting this kind of claustrophobic, like doom, like you just feel like something bad is going to happen with the atmosphere of it. So I think it really grabbed me by the throat in that way. And uh I really enjoyed the performances. I'm still trying to I'm almost like this movie. I almost feel like would have been like I feel I wanted it to be longer. Like I think it actually would work better as a mini series. There's just so much that happens and is revealed in that third act, and I love the whole setup through the first two thirds. But there's so much in that last 20 to 30, 25 minutes where I'm like, and maybe it's because I just watched it, but I wanted a little more, or even just a 2 hour runtime, like just a little more time with these characters, a little more time to set up what's coming. But overall, I really did it. I liked it. I definitely liked it. So I'm glad I checked it out, and I'm glad that, you know, Scott and Jonathan put us on the scent of this one.
And a rating, what would you give it?
I think for me, it's a 4 out of 5. Um, I a very solid 4, a very
Nice.
solid 4, and Nicolas Cage did not disappoint. He was very cagey.
Okay, so booting Derek.
Uh-huh.
Derek has
Uh,
left the chat.
yes, not of his own accord. And with that, we are going to come to our final movie of the evening. Mr. Drebit, would you like to introduce Terrifier 3 for us?
Terrifier 3. Damien Leone's third Terrifier film, fifth Art the Clown appearance. The whole phenomenon with this, I think we were just due for a new icon, a new horror villain to look up to. I certainly know an early champion of the first film. I dug it quite a bit. And then, of course, the second one hit and it kind of went through the roof, as it were. And the third one now, again, third one is now made
$56
history.
million on a $2 million budget.
Yeah, it is the most successful unrated movie of all, independent movie of all time. If you're a fan of the series, where does this one sit? Well, first, a little bit of story. It's, I think, 5 years after the first one, 5 or 6 years after the first movie, or the second movie, I mean, sorry.
Oh, wow.
Sienna has moved on. Her brother is in school away, and it's around Christmas time, and Art shows up again and lays waste to many, many people, including probably in my favorite moment in the movie, Daniel Roebuck as a Santa Claus. Is it good? Yeah, it's good. I think he's a good filmmaker. I saw this one in the theater, and it's a cool thing to see something that's made from the ground up and that's built from the ground up to playing in the multiplexes, and very successfully. The fourth one is already obviously the wheels are in motion for that. As far as the Terrifier movies go, again, without giving anything away, there really isn't that much to give away, which is part of my problem with the third movie. Is I don't think it forwards the story really at all. It gives you fills in a couple small little pieces of backstory, but it doesn't move the story. This story of Sienna and Art and how they're connected, I don't think it moves it forward enough. Jason Patrick has a couple nice scenes as well as her dad in flashbacks. But I liked it. But the second one has this kind of grandeur to it that this one maybe doesn't have. It's the Empire Strikes Back of horror flicks.
Jonathan, you've seen this, right? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with Scott on this being the Empire Strikes Back of, we'll call it the Sienna trilogy, as I assume it'll be. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I mean, it's definitely like this movie's solid. I had a great time with it. I had a great time with an audience. It's interesting because there's kind of that like, oh, like it's only gore, but like there's an incredible amount of backstory and like a rich mythology that Damien Leone is building upon. And so that's really what I've enjoyed about it. It may not further the story in significant leaps and bounds, but it certainly does further the story. And I think the big thing it does is it starts to give us more details on exactly like what's going on, like what, because, Art didn't always appear, supernatural. So now we have Art, we have Victoria, and we have like I said, Sienna at play, and how do they all fit into this mythology? Why are they all pitted against each other? We learn more about that, and so I think that's exciting, especially in terms of, like I said, kind of understanding where they're. Yeah, I mean, and then of course, like I said, the gore is excellent, it's well done. I've talked about something that I think is interesting. Is that I think that Terrifier 3 and The Substance are great examples of movies being filmed for what I'd consider a modern audience. I think we've kind of reached a tipping point where, like, there are movies that resonate better with Gen Z, or that are filmed in a certain way that will resonate better with them. I think Smile 2 actually is an example of a movie that's more classically filmed. So you have Smile 2, you have like the first Omen. Like, horror critics have really liked those, and audiences have to a degree, but those movies are kind of an old style filmmaking. I believe, like I said, they're a little stretched out, and you see people that don't resonate with it. I kind of understand it. Whereas you look at the substance and it's like quick, flashy, in your face. It might be, nearly 2.5 hours, but the way it's filmed is kind of like sensory overload. And I think that's why the Terrifier films, especially two and three, really work for modern audiences, is because they are, even though they're stretched out, they are flashy. I think the editing is really interesting. The way that art is kind of cut in and out. So as he's sawing into someone or stabbing someone, it's not one like continuous take. There are like splices, or like it does a quick switch to like him at another angle or him moving. And it's very, we'll say like very TikTok or like very Instagram friendly editing. And I don't think it was even intentional, right? Because like if you look at when Terrifier 2 was made, it took years. So like social, like especially TikTok was still getting big. But it kind of speaks to why this is, I think, it's keeping people's attention, designed to do that, or was unintentionally designed to do that. So yeah, I think everything around this movie, like this, like for whatever reason, like New Line isn't making Freddy movies, and so people have been, and we know why we don't have Jason. So like kids need a slasher, and now they have a slasher. They have an unrated slasher that their parents are telling them, hey, don't go see this. That people are passing out when they go to see. That people are throwing up. Like I could not take my mom. And so I think it's really cool that people have.
Nice. Scott,
Yes,
ratings.
sir. I give Terrifier 3.5. It's two, the second one so far for me has been the high point in the series, and then I would have this one below it, and then the first movie below that. And I'm sure by 2026 at the latest we will have Terrifier 4, and I look forward to it and see some more art mayhem.
Nice. Jonathan, rating.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I think we took maybe slightly different stances on how we see, on what we thought of the movie, but I still am at a 3.5. Terrifier 2's a better movie for me. It's the holiday setting. It's not that there's anything wrong with the holiday setting. It's that I gravitated much more to like the standard slasher high school setup of Terrifier 2. I think they kind of
Yeah.
perfected the like the 80s slasher setup in a, modern slasher. And I just, it's something that I'll watch more often.
Outstanding. All right. So yeah, we'll look forward to, I'm sure there were definitely, like you said, Scott, be future installments with Mr. Art of the Clowns.
Yeah, already been announced, so there's at least
Yeah.
a four, if not a four
Yeah.
and five.
And given that the budget on these suckers are like $2 million, like I'm sure they'll make these until they're dead. So they'll take the Deadpool and Wolverine like until they're 90.
Yeah.
Well, he's guaranteed theatrical now, so for the
Yeah.
next one, that's a no, that's a given. So let's see if he gets more money too.
Yeah. But
Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. As always, we want to thank our listeners. Make sure you're visiting corpseclub.com to check out our latest episodes. Don't forget to rate. I can talk. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every rating and review helps us out. You can also find us on Google Play, SoundCloud, and all your favorite podcast providers. If you want to get in touch, you can reach us at any time at contact@corpseclub.com, or on Twitter at Daily Dead News or at Corpse Club, and on Instagram and Facebook under Corpse Club. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and until next time, stay scary.